All right. Welcome to episode 3 of Let's Talk About the Music. Today we're going to salute to all the men and women in the military worldwide. Today we're going to explore the unique experience of musicians in the military. And at the same time, we're all going to discuss music. Hello, it's a music talk show. Before we get started, here's some fun facts you may or may not know. As of 2020, there are 27,406,000 armed forces personnel worldwide. That's including active duty and paramilitary military forces. In 2024, the military strength rank listed as US as number 1 and Australia as number 16. And U.S. Army forces alone have reported 6,500 military musicians and 130 units. These bands support military bases, boost soldier morale, and act as a musical ambassador in peacetime. I'll have more fun facts throughout the episode. Now, let me introduce our guest hosts. Here in Pacific Northwest, we know them as Grace and Austin from alternative emo band Prickly Paranoia. Fun fact, they both served in the military. Get the episode now? Tony from Gen X has family in the military as well, but he prefers to keep their journeys private. We will respect his journey and appreciate his willingness to share his music experience. Now, let's dive into the conversation right after Papa Satch rocks you with a brand new theme song. Hit it, guys!
Let's talk about the music. Let's talk about the band. Let's talk about the music. Let's talk about the sound. Let's talk about the music. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the music. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the music. All around. Let's talk about it.
Hi guys, this is Shelter. Let's talk about the music. I'm on the show here with Tony from Gen X in Australia and Austin and Grace from Prickly Paranoia. It's something hard to talk to Prickly Paranoia. And today we're going to be talking to them about musicians in the military. So first things first, I guess know there's going to be audio and visual, meaning that we're going to be on people who want to listen to the podcast. They can hear it. So we're going to go around the room, sort of. So we can hear your voices and get to know who we are. So, Austin, you go first.
Yeah, hello everyone out there. My name's Austin. I'm the guitar player for Prickly Paranoia. I co-write some songs. And yeah, I'm originally from Montana, but I'm out here in Seattle. Just doing the band thing.
All right. All right, Grace, you're up.
I'm Grace. I play bass and vocals for the band. I do most of the lyric writing. I'm from Virginia originally, but I've moved around a ton as an active duty member of the Army. I'm a Army captain in the logistics branch and currently in Tacoma, Washington.
Cool. You badass woman right there. All
How
right,
you going?
Tony, you're up.
My name's Tony Schmidt. As much as I'd love to be Gen X, I'm actually the lead vocalist and lead guitarist with Gen 2, but hey, doesn't matter. We're based in Melbourne, Australia, and we're a commercial rock band. And whereas I'm not in the military, I do have a military family, and so I've got to have a connection with that at that front too. We've just got a new album out this week, Future History of Repeating, that dropped on the 28th, which is Wednesday, and we're just doing live shows here, based out of Melbourne, and heading around the country over the coming months. And have a lot of experience with military life, and actually know quite a few musos in the military as well here. So not first-hand experience, but very close second-hand experience with musicians in the military. But a very good close relationship with the Australian military.
Awesome. And I am Shell, the host of Let's Talk Music. I do not have no military background whatsoever. I do have a brother who's in the military. At least I think he was one. My grandpa was in the military. He was actually in the Navy. And I was trying to get into the National Guards, but I didn't pass the third question. Do you have asthma? Well, yes, I do. Okay, you can't come in. Like, okay, bye. So that's basically my background in military, but I do respect and honor those who respect in the past and I don't know. So I salute you. Alrighty. So, okay. So the topic again is the musicians in the military. Like you guys are in the military, and I know that Prickly and Paranoid. You met overseas in actually in active duty. So tell us about that real quick.
Right. Yeah. So we both got orders to go overseas to a place in Kuwait called Camp Beering. It's a little boring over there. You know, it's kind of just a purgatory feeling of life. You know, we're not going out and doing missions. We're not doing anything crazy there. And that's where my unit was stationed out of. That's our base of operations. I ended up going elsewhere later, but in Kuwait, there's a couple of places where you could go play music with other people. One of those being the chapel band, you know, kind of the religious services part of the Army, which we host every Sunday. Multiple religions have their services at the chapel. There's other places, but we were lucky enough to have a chapel there with guitars, you know, drum kit, bass guitar, keyboard, microphones. And, you know, we'd have practices, Tuesdays, Thursdays, twice a week. So we'd show up and play music. And I was immediately drawn to that. You know, I was playing guitar in another place that's like a USO is what they call it, but it's basically like a rec room. They had some old guitars in there with a couple of strings on them, and I'm playing with this guy, and he's like, wow, like you should join the chapel band. I'm like, all right, let's check it out. And I played there for a week. Second week I was there, Grace walks in the room and we started playing from there.
Yeah, I had just shown up in Kuwait and saw a flyer, musicians wanted for Sunday services. I was like, oh, might check that out. So there's a number and I texted him and he said, yeah, come by. It was the chaplain. He showed me around. I was like, oh, wow, this is awesome. They have all this gear and everything. So next week I was there and joined the band and met a lot of cool people, including this guy.
Yeah, it was cool. They had a Fender Stratocaster there, which is a nice guitar.
Yeah.
Mexican Strat, but I was like, dang, this is like gold over here in the Middle East, you know, deployed. Yeah. This is awesome. They had some nice amplifiers, a whole PA system. So it was pretty cool. There's a lot of really tight musicians, really good musicians over there to play.
Good. Do you still stay in contact with them?
There's a few, yeah, through social media.
Okay, cool. All right. What about you, Tony? You said you have a few people in your own band that is actually in the military. So are you able to tell us about that?
Yeah, actually, look, I mean, our son's actually in the military, and he's a serving officer. He's a cracker of a musician, but he's not a musician in the military. But as a consequence of him going through, military college and everything like that, and him coming from a musical family, of course, all of his friends who are musicians in the military that in his cohort, of course, somehow get to meet me, if you know what I mean. So we chat about that kind of stuff, and because I've been doing this for several centuries, as you can imagine. So it's just like, it's over here. It's a really it's a well promoted path into the military and into military life here is being a part of the military band. And that's across the three forces that we have here, and our son's in the Army, but we have obviously Navy and Air Force as well, and they take a lot of pride. They're usually extremely tight musicians because they really rehearse a lot, and I guess. There's some seriously big pressure gigs too. I mean, if you're over here, and I don't know what you know about Australian military history, but we have Anzac Day, which celebrates the landing in Gallipoli by the Anzac forces, so it's the Australian and New Zealand forces, and it was quite a major military battle and a bit of a disaster, to tell you the truth, because of some operational matters leading up to it. So it's a day where Australia stops and respects our serving and past serving members. And the bands and musicians are really at the forefront. Everything from just obviously playing the last post as the honour, and revel, and through to leading the marches that are all around the country, even the smallest country towns, and that they have their military marches, and the bands tend to ship. I played in a band with a former Navy musician. He was a Navy drummer and vocalist, and he was telling me about sort of the Anzac Day and the Remembrance Day services. It's like November 11. He said it was just, they would go from dawn to midnight, because they would ship them around to different return services leagues, which is kind of the RSO clubs, but we have the RSL here, and they'd go out and they'd go to wreath-laying ceremonies and everything like that. And it really music in the military, it sets the mood for the whole operation. The solemnness that leads up to, or whether it's a wreath-laying ceremony or a commemorative speech, the extreme solemnness of leading into 1 or 2 minutes silence and then coming out of that. And then it's also that release. I guess you guys would find that, being musicians in the military, that's like after you've had the solemn commemorations, it's down to you guys to pick up the mood too, and sort of give that signal of hope. And I mean, let's face it, that's what the military is all about. It's about the hope that freedom prevails, and that people are free to enjoy their lives. And music is the most profound example of that, and it touches everybody. So I mean, right to you guys, because you really set the mood for so many occasions and keep people going.
Well, really, it does. It does affect the morale a lot, Tony. You're definitely right about that. So I want to just clarify something. So Grace and I, we aren't contracted in as musicians.
Yeah.
We just happen to play, and we do have. That is a job in the Army, and I went to basic training with some of those guys who were playing the horn and playing the drums, or playing various other instruments in the Army band, and that's a lot of fun to see those guys, because
they're super skilled.
There's a lot of
aren't they super skilled?
Well, there's a lot of qualifications. So I was in basic training with a few of them, and they came into the Army at a higher rank, E4. So I came in as a E3 because I have college experience. They came in as an E4, a rank above me, because they were so qualified already in their job. Where I was a mechanic, that's what I do. I'm a mechanic, and I'm not, there's no proficiency test on that they do. They're like, okay, mechanic, we're going to send you through the school. You're going to continue on through your service. But with the musicians who were contracted in that way to be a horn player, like a trombone or a trumpet, or they even have guitar players, full kit drummers, snare drummers, bass, all sorts of, the whole shebang. They have a jazz band, but those guys have to play a prepared piece, a sight reading piece, and then a piece selected by the committee that they learn. Mm-hmm. So
during my research, I saw that it being a musician inside the band, inside the military, was a full-time job. Just like, what is this? And so I read a few things how much skill they happen to be. And I remember being in high school watching the bands play there. I didn't realize they can actually go from those jazz bands and go into the military and be like that. So that was pretty amazing here, researching all that stuff.
Right. They don't have to go to college. The musicians who were playing in the Army could easily make it into most of the colleges that have a music program. Right. They're super talented. So it's that level of musicianship and skill that it takes to be the MOS, the military occupational specialty of musician in the U.S. Army or the Marines, the Navy. I really am not too familiar with the other branches. I'm more the Army, but in Montana, we didn't have that opportunity. And I don't know if I could sight read good enough to join.
I know I can. I know I can. I've been playing twice as long as you guys have been alive, and I can't sight read.
I played a trombone and jazz band, and I know how to read the music, but I'm more of a,
Oh yeah,
feeling a listener,
I got that.
a reader.
Yeah.
Being in a rock band, that's what I gravitate towards more than paper. But it's cool because the improv skills that I got from the jazz band really translate over to the rock band, and it's fun because playing live, I really don't play too many written solos. I'm just improvising the whole time, and it's super fun. Like the old school blues style jazz improv. It's a lot of fun.
I got to tell you come and see Gen 2 live and you're going to see some mad guitar playing. And we had Claude Ferrante, our other guitarist, is a super skilled guitarist as well. But you look at it and we throw it around and it really comes down. But I can tell you that every show, every solo, always the same.
Wow.
It's just the way I've been built because I was a hired gun musician, so I would fly to Los Angeles from Australia, get invited to go over there, and I'd spend a week in LA and record an album for another band whose guitarist had to go to rehab or broke an arm or something like. Because once upon a time they never used to make a TV program about someone ending up in rehab. They'd be like, shh, keep it quiet because it could be like 250,000 album sales. And I had a couple of producers who I worked with, very well known, and they know I can get a hold of this stuff, and I don't sight read, and a lot of the time I don't even need the music. I just sort of like, hey, okay, this is what's going. We're one track into a 12-track album, and someone's had to go to rehab. I'm like, it's okay, I'll come along, and I would just go and the reason I got so much of this work is they didn't have to go shipping master tapes around the globe. With no internet and stuff like that, you couldn't move stuff like that around. You had to put master tapes on a plane and send them here, and I go to the studio. It's like, don't bother with that. I'll fly over. It's
hard enough to do it digitally nowadays. I can't imagine having to ship the master tapes overseas and actually listen to them and try.
Crazy.
The reason I got so much work is because they didn't have to do it with me. I'd be like, okay, just tell me who the band is, because I've got NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. I got them a mile long, as well as official secret acts with 3 countries. So it's like, there's a lot in here that's just never coming out. But the point would be like, okay, this is the band, this is the problem, this is their new album. I go, yep, I'll call you back, and I go away and get all of their catalog and just play the records or the tapes or the CDs, depending on where it was in the area, and then get back in touch with the producer and go, okay, so do you want me to play it like he'd play it, like I'd play it, or a mix of both? And the answer was usually a mix of both, because a lot of the producers saw it as an opportunity to maybe advance the sound of said band a little bit, and in a better, different direction. And I would turn up in LA and walk in the studio, and there would be the stuff, and they'd be like, right, here we go, track 1. And instead of spending a week on a track or a month on a track, normally 5 to 7 days would see me do a 12-track album. And then I often got paid to come back and teach the guitarist how to play these things. And I've always thought, when you're sort of doing that kind of thing, that really you've got to nail your solos. And I use the Steve Vai. I played with Steve Vai, and I played with Joe Satriani and Steve Lukather and those kind of people. So
Lukather and Vai.
Oh yeah. Wow. Lukather and I, between the two of us, had most of the go-to session work for that period of time. It's like it was usually him or me.
That's wild. For the listeners, Prickly Paranoia, we haven't listened to Tony play. We haven't listened to his band. So this is really wild for me to listen, to hear you say that you've played with a lot of my idols. That's incredible.
You better get on to Spotify and check out Future History Repeating our new album.
As soon as we're done with this, absolutely. That's inspirational.
The live track.
That's really great.
Yeah, I just met Tony last night. I had a thing on Facebook that, hey, I'm looking for any musicians in the military. And Tony said, okay, what's up? So he sent me his music while I was putting all together the research I was gathering. And I was like, damn, yeah, that's awesome. So, so that was pretty good.
Grace, you're a bass player, aren't you, Grace?
Yes.
She's badass.
Okay, so
badass.
when you download the album or get it on Spotify, I want you to go to the first bonus track on the album. It's a live track. It's called Bassman Jam.
Oh.
I'm fortunate enough to have one of the best bass players in the Southern Hemisphere playing with me in Jam 2.
Nice.
You hear the bass solos on that, you're going to go, ooh, nasty. You just will. Trust me, you're going to love it. It's cool because we float between sort of like hard rock, but not like metal, and funk rock. So I think our last single, it was described as like a cross between Red Hot Chili Peppers meets Primus meets Cake, and all thrown into one thing.
Wow.
So, I reckon you'll enjoy it. Yeah, so hook us up on that. Hook us up on Spotify.
Looking forward to it. That's incredible. Yeah. The whole recording thing is a lot of fun. We have one record out right now called Prickly, and it was a really thrown together album or EP release really quickly. So we were overseas. I went back to Montana, so I'm in the National Guard, kind of like what you were hoping to do, right? Join the Guard.
Yeah.
I was able to make it in. I was like this close because I had a lot of legal stuff that I had as but I was able to make it in, just fine. I joined later at 21, halfway through college, and I ended up overseas, and so we did our music together. We were doing the chapel band thing, work, doing our job, and then as soon as we'd get off, Grace and I would be like, hey, let's meet up at the chapel. So we'd go back to the chapel and start playing music, recording. I ended up ordering recording equipment, like a DI box, and they had microphones, so I could record, and had a laptop. So we did some recordings there, wrote some songs. And then I went back to Montana. Grace went back. Well, she went back to Texas and then went to captain school over in Virginia. And we're just long distance bandmates at that point, just like, hey, sending our stuff back and forth digitally. Like, here's my thoughts. Here's what I wrote. Here's my lyrics. I'm like, okay, here's my stuff. And then we just met up in Phoenix. My best friend is actually a audio engineer graduate from down in Phoenix, a school called Crass. So he was working for a music studio. We got in there, had 3 days to do 6 songs that we really didn't have fleshed out.
That we had never really played together.
We never played it together.
That's under the pump, isn't it?
It was fun. It was fun. And it's different from what we're playing now, because we didn't really have time to bring our sounds together, and meld our sound and find the sound that we want. It was just some songs that we recorded and released. But I remember that we hired.
Sorry, can I ask a weird question? Are you into like a couple or bandmates or both?
What was that, Tim?
Are you a couple or just bandmates or both?
Yeah. It ended up being a dual thing there. It's great.
See what happens when you meet a young lady and say, "Hey, let's meet in the chapel." You're starting the right way.
We were just
I know.
We were just friends for a year, and then when we got back stateside, we kept in touch. And
overseas, we were purely for the music. I mean, I had feelings. She had feelings, but we kept it professional. We're overseas in a deployment. We couldn't really explore that part of a relationship, but we felt the chemistry with the music. We had so many laughs and a lot of fun over there. It was a great time.
That's the key. And so, Grace, a bass-related question for you. In two parts. What's your weapon of choice, and do you put a limit on 4 strings, or do you play 5 and 6? How do you feel about all of that?
I want to switch over to the 5-string for some of our songs, but I feel like just some songs are better on 4-string and some are better on 5-string, but I play the Squire 40th anniversary jazz bass.
Sweet. Nice. It's like a long scale neck, so you're right into that. I play a bit of bass as well, so I have a Warwick 5-string double buck.
Warwick's beautiful bass. Yeah,
it's a beautiful bass.
That Squire's about as big as Grace is on stage. It cracks me up.
Yeah,
well, I mean, yeah, like a.
I've seen these guys play live. Is how I met them, and this thing is bigger than she is, and she just like sitting there and just bouncing with it. And it's like, damn, girl.
I can't reach the tuning pegs, so I have to like slide it over to tune it.
and I was just like, and then that's why I asked, because like I've never actually seen a female bass player play a short scale bass.
Really?
Just because I don't think they run the same way. You know what I mean? I just thought like there's something about the long scale and there's something about the tension of the strings that gives you the option to either play jazz style or like really maybe pop and slap a bit or whatever. But it's problematic because like if the tuning pegs are over here and your arms only reach this bit, it's like I'm just going to move all of that and do that right now.
Well, Grace is nuts too. Grace is nuts too. So overseas, we're doing all this, and she's writing a lot of the songs. And I started off on the bass, so I was the original bass player for our project, and she was playing acoustic guitar. And we just kind of, eventually switched over to her playing bass and I'm playing guitar.
I'm not going to have you play that D minor anymore. Give me that bass, damn it.
She's the singer too, so singing and playing bass. Like I don't know, my dream thing is to play the bass guitar, but I was playing.
You got denied.
Well, I was
denied.
I was playing since I was 11 years old or 10.
Yeah,
I started on the bass, and Grace has only been playing since after the pandemic. She's a brand new to the stringed instruments. What about 2.5 years now?
I had never even touched a bass until we were overseas, and the chapel had a bunch of instruments, and Austin taught me the basics, and I started playing bass for the the gospel group and worked on my chops with them. They play really fast.
Gospel is hard music. They didn't.
You need some chops for that.
Well, they didn't have chords. They didn't have chords. She'd have to, they'd be like, hey, here's the song. And they had the keys guys were kind of the main thing.
They were so good.
So good. World class, I feel like almost.
I would just watch what the keys player was doing and try to follow.
Look at the bass hand. It's for the root side. And go from there.
That's a really interesting way. I mean, it's a really cool way to actually learn how to play the bass. Actually, I've never heard of anyone doing that. And I'm thinking, that's actually a really cool way to play the bass. It's like, okay, you go, right, I'm going to look at that and go, yep, okay, we can do that. And then I'm going to sort of work out how to walk between those notes or how to move between those notes. I'll be getting a download. Is it available on all the streaming services like Prickly?
Yeah.
You up on Spotify and that?
Yep.
I will be doing that.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's a very, very different from what we play now. So that's more of like an indie type record. There's two that I wrote, and they're the two more hard rock songs. And then Grace has 4 songs that she wrote that we played. It's a 6-song EP. And now we've really evolved so much from that record, and we're hoping to put out a new one within the next year, but we've been saying that for about 6 months. So
I was about to ask you, aren't you guys still working on your second one?
So
we're done.
We're getting the demos.
Okay.
We're still finishing up a couple of the songs with demos and, trying to figure out how we're going to actually record it. Do we want to do it DIY here in the house? I'm fairly familiar with recording. I can always phone a friend, that we recorded with.
But I'm always going to recommend that it's always a better idea, and if you can afford it, to actually find someone who just maybe specializes in the recording. Right. Because, and that's nothing about your capability as a recording engineer or a musician.
I'm bad.
But it doesn't matter. What it's about is your focus on the project. I produced a lot of albums. I co-produced Gen 2. I co-produced it with Chris Gatz, and Chris Gatz is an award-winning producer, and he's a very, very good friend of mine. We do the production. On pre-production, we work together. And then during that recording phase, production goes to the second thing that I do. He does all of the engineering work. And then I can listen back to what we've got and go, that's too much, or this needs a bit more of that. About why don't we try this? We licensed a bunch of stuff. I was actually going to we were going to master this album at Abbey Road in London, and I went to Abbey Road and had the meetings and everything like that. And then the pandemic hit, and it was like, that's not going to happen. So we licensed a bunch of their software to use here in Australia. So we've, sort of like all Chris Lord-Alge stuff and all that kind of stuff. That's the package that we use. But you look at our album and you go, from a technical side, people walk into the studio. We record over at GM Sound Studios in Melbourne. And people walk in, and we leave the control room door open because it's not like there's a whole bunch of public going in and out. We know everybody that's in there, and they come in and they look at the double screens on there and go, that's a lot of tracks to go. You're only looking at about a quarter of the project, and most of the songs on this album have 72 tracks, and then we use, I think our biggest one. When you listen to the album, have a listen to the version of Heroes, the extended version. There's two versions. There's got a radio edit on there, and there's an extended version. It has 72 tracks and 48 sub pairs, and the 48 sub pairs go in and out and grab things like compressors and delays and stuff like that. So we don't hold back.
Yeah.
Yeah, but during the recording process, I kind of switch off from that, because I focus on the musicianship. And I think that's why I think, like, for you two, it'd be a really good idea if you've got someone who's an engineer at least to go, hey, we're going to come in, we're going to focus on being the musicians that we are and do that. But I was also going to say,
I hear you, because in doing it in our home studio, it's not like, okay, drummer, go hit it. Get the levels set in there, get the levels set in the guitar room, the bass room, and the vocals. It's like, okay, we're going to do the drums, but, in between projects, we're going to run cables into different rooms, and we don't have the setup. You know what I'm saying? We don't have that perfect setup. Also, the acoustics aren't as good as they would be in a perfect studio, right?
But you don't even need to go like to a mega expensive studio and then you're like, oh man, who's got 30 grand to do an album, right? Okay. Most people can't do that. I mean, like Future History Repeating costs a bit more than 30 grand to do, but that's my life. So if you look at that, what I'm going to say is there's plenty of people around who do recording, and they've got themselves a decent home studio and they've got themselves some decent gear. If you can find someone like that who's like seems good to work, they've got to be good to work with, because you don't want any tension while you're trying to do that. It's creativity. You're being creative, and this is the thing that you don't want to be bouncing in and out of creativity. It's just too hard to do. You need to go like, okay, I'm in the zone now. Thanks very much. And if you've got someone behind the desk going, oh, man, we got a little buzz on this, let's go again, they can fix the little buzz. You're not worried about that. You're just worried about going again. Or you listen back to it and go, hey, you know what, that little run there, where we go that, I want to do that again. I'm not happy with that. That's the kind of focus you should have. I wanted to just pop back to the core subject. So musicians in the military, right? I always am amazed about the capability of musicians in the military in marching bands. Yeah. Because like, if you're a musician, that's one thing. If you're a proficient professional musician, that's a whole nother level. Then you want to start marching around in time and doing that so it looks like you're not just going for a stroll while you're doing it. That's a whole nother level again.
Yes, it is.
These band members, these marching band members, these performance band members across all of the military, whether it's Navy, Army, Air Force, or Marines, these guys have got a whole skill level which is ridiculous.
Yeah, I watch them all the time in praise and all the Super Bowl and all those different kind of things, and they're in tune. They're marching in sync, and they even twill the drums together when they need to twirl them. It's like,
Yeah.
that is like a whole level different kind of
And it's this thing. It's this thing. You want to try just marching around with your arms like this for about half hour and see how your upper body strength holds up. I need to go hit the gym. I've got to play today.
It's extra hard too because when you're playing horns in a theater or somewhere that's a controlled environment meant for the type of sounds that a band's going to be playing, it's a lot easier to stay in tune on a trumpet, or I play trombone. So playing trombone, I can be more in, move my slide and be more in tune and listen to the band more. But in a football stadium, when I was doing high school music and marching around or like doing parades around the town, I really can't hear anybody. So you're just praying that everyone's in tune,
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the temperature change, so it gets really hard. So you really have to focus on, making sure that first warm up, scale is on and that you're with everybody.
Yeah, the worst thing that can possibly happen is that a cold change happens halfway through your gig.
Everybody
gets all messed up. It's the worst thing because either the first half of it sounded really, really awful, or the second half is going to.
Exactly. The cool thing about that. Go ahead.
So you play trombone, Grace. Do you play bass? Do you play any other instruments? Like, do you get involved in performance bands with the military? Like, obviously you do the jazz bands and the event bands and the get together bands and chapel and that. Do you do any other parade bands and stuff like that? Does that work with you?
No, nothing like that. It's kept pretty separate from what I do day to day, but a really cool opportunity we did have when we were overseas. We got to play in like the cafeteria where everyone eats. So it's kind of like a pep band type of, vibe. Like you're trying to boost people's morale. So we played for Thanksgiving and Christmas and Juneteenth. So that was really nice to be able to like kind of spread a little bit of joy. But
you do play trumpet too, though. Not in the marching sense, whatever, but you do play trumpet, and we're both keys players, obviously I feel like every musician should know the keys, but those were really cool gigs. I feel like over at the cafeteria overseas playing for Christmas, that's probably one of the biggest groups that I've played for, because there's such a fast rotation of soldiers out eating food and, just going through it.
People,
big crowds, just going through and just hoping that we're, putting on a good show. The first one for Thanksgiving, we didn't have a sound guy. It was kind of a DIY type thing.
Wow.
And,
that can happen, but you know what? It often sounds better than you think, because musicianship comes to the fore. And we're our own worst enemies, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Musicians going, oh man, that's not right. I can't hear that properly, whatever. I finished gigs and I thought, I hope that was right. I mean, after this many years, I can pitch my songs and play my stuff. And I'm kind of one of those few people that's like do lead guitar, play guitar, and sing at the same time. Even if you look through all of the bands that you'll ever see, there's not many do that. They're either strictly rhythm or nothing at all. So after this many years, I can pitch and everything. But I'd come away from gigs where like zero sound at all. I can hear Greg behind me hitting the drum kit, and occasionally I get a bass note. Right? And I got nothing else, and I'm hoping for the best. I did a show on Wednesday night here in Melbourne. I went out before we went on because I listened to the stage sound. I went, oh, there's nothing. I went outside in the side street next to this hotel, and just to sort of practice the solo out of one song, because I'm like, I haven't played this song for a while. I'm just going to nail this solo. And if it's a muscle memory thing, I know where it is, that's fine, away we go. And just as well, because there was no way I could hear anything. And I came off thinking, that sounded horrible. But the venue it just erupted. All of these people who were just like sitting down listening to the act before, who was just like a really mellow jazz act. They just got up and the place went burlesque. I was just like mental, everybody dancing, jumping around, and they're like, that's the best thing I've ever seen, man. I'm like, oh, okay, glad you liked it.
That's
I'm
so
thinking to
incredible.
myself, sounded pretty horrible to me. Just for that.
Isn't it when you get off stage, you're like, how was the sound? Is one of my most common questions to like my friends
Yeah.
or other musicians.
Yeah.
Like, hey, how was
Yeah.
the sound? It was awesome. I'm like, oh, I was way too
Okay.
right behind my
There-
guitar amp, you know?
There's my favorite band out here, Thunders of Wrath. I'll plug them real quick. I'm a big fan of theirs. I've been their biggest fan since they first started in 2015. So I've been following these guys forever. So one night they were performing and they were really not having a good day. You can hear it. And it's like, okay, maybe it's just me. And the next time they're at Louis G's, their grandparents came out to me and go, Shell, were they off? Like, yeah, I thought I was me. So if me and the grandparents and the family can hear it, of course, the audience doesn't know that because they probably don't really follow them like I do. So it has a great feedback to know that when you guys are playing, you think you're doing your horrible best, the worst. Their audience is thinking you're doing a fantastic job. So it's amazing how where you guys are doing that and we're all hearing differently. Or vice versa, you guys have a great time, but you have family or myself who've been following you forever to tell you differently. So ever since that happened, they'll come to me and say, how was that? Like,
how was it?
you were great. You were fantastic.
For sure. Like Tony was saying, we're our biggest, you know,
we are.
You know, as musicians. And it's tough too, because you want to provide the best product for your audience, no matter where you're at. And you really you don't know what the, you know, front of house is hearing because you're back there. You know, you got the drum kit and
but think about what Grace was just saying. She was like, it was the biggest joy was playing in the cafeteria. And just for people in Australia who are watching this, it's not like a cafeteria with 20 people in it. This is a military cafeteria. This is a big space, right?
Right.
and it's busy. But you said it brought you a lot of joy because, you know, you were lifting the mood. And so it means a lot. It's the emotional connection of music is the most important thing. And I think it's probably, you know, I mean, I can't speak for you guys, but I get the kind of vibe. It's what we do it for. You do it. You do it because you love it, but there's nothing better than playing to an audience and the audience loves it. It's the coolest thing because you have the power to change someone's outlook on their day.
Exactly.
And if they're having a real bad one, you can make them have a great day.
Have you ever playing a show and, you know, the whole band just strikes one chord, or like there's a certain part in a song where you get a feedback from the audience where you can visually see them and audibly hear them a little bit? That is the best feeling in the world. When you see the audience just clicking with what you're doing, it's like a drug. It is so awesome.
Yeah. I was in a band called Super Geek League. We were kind of psychedelic, kind of clowns band or whatever. I was a Roman performer. And this one time we were in band practice and we were watching, the energy was spot on. You can feel the vibe through the practice hall. We went to perform that same night, the next night we went to perform, or the 2 nights afterwards. We went to perform and we were again spot on. And there's a lot of people that knows that band and came to me while I was doing my roving or doing my performance. And they're like, that was the best performance ever. You guys were in sync. And I told them, that energy was actually on practice. So I'm happy it carried. And it was a very amazing performance from practice into the opening act and watching it happen and having the audience be in tune with that energy.
Yeah, it's a very, very cool film. I'll be posting something on my socials a little later on. In Melbourne, the music scene is really struggling at the moment. If you don't play in a cover band or a tribute band, it's really hard to get a gig. Original bands, you know, and it's just because we've got a lot of the venues that used to have stages in them. They got a poker machine license and they put poker machines on it, so it kind of trashed the industry here. But we're sitting with the boys. and a couple of months ago, I said, you know what? They do all these open mic nights, right? So I'm like, stay with me. The guy's like, right. And I'm like, no, stay with me on this. Listen, I reckon we should go and start playing at open mic nights. And I said, it's not about being better than everybody or whatever. Music's not competitive. I don't care. I know some people who can sit at the piano and play one note and talk over it in such a way you'll be going, that is the most captivating thing that I've seen, right? So it doesn't matter. It's not a competition. So the guy's like, okay, would that be a bit weird? I go, no, we'll just find some open mic nights, and if they're acoustic nights, we'll do an acoustic set, and if they've got backline, we'll go in there and tear the house down. So a couple of Wednesdays ago, we turn up, and it's like I messaged the guy. I'm like, you got backline? Yep, no worries. Can we do a few songs? And the guy sent back and goes, Tony, and I went, yeah. He goes, you guys want to do a few songs to this? I'm like, yeah. It's like, sure, do you want to be the feature band? I'm like, yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter. I don't care. It's not a competition. We want to get... And I had a producer, mate of mine, we put it up online, a producer mate of mine from Sydney rang and went, what are you doing an open mic night for? And I'm like, think about it this way. It's a venue with PA and lights with people in it who actually want to see music.
Right.
It's not a little pub where they've set someone in the corner with an acoustic guitar and a microphone, and when they come on, everybody just talks louder because they're going, I wish they'd just stop that music. Not that it's bad, it's just in the way. Now, we're the kind of band that you go, when you go and see a band and you pay money to go and see the band, and you're not like sitting there trying to go, I wish they'd turn it down a bit so I could like talk. No, you come and see Gen 2. It's one of those bands. Right? So we did it Wednesday week ago and tore the place up. It was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Right? And there was like indie acts, there was jazz acts, there was poetry, there was all this kind of stuff. And on week up, bang, right? So Wednesday just passed like 2 days ago because it's Friday here. So I had to work out the timing. And we, I contacted the guy who runs the night, and he's like, oh, dude, yeah, great, no worries. We'll put you on as a feature act. I'm like, okay, so we'll do a 5-song set.
Nice, bro.
As the night went,
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
As the night sort of came to, the guy said, look, man, we're running a bit behind time. Can you cut it to 4 songs? I'm like, yeah, whatever. That's fine. So we go there, and the only difference is my amp gets carried up onto the stage. Right? It doesn't go through the PA because it doesn't have to. so away we go.
Yeah.
And you were talking about that one note, right, where everybody goes, ooh, right? We start our show like most people finish their show. It's not like, as musicians, you get the last show of the night, the night's going really well, and you've got this big song, and you finish a big finishing number, and it's like, at the end, and you hit the bass notes, and might do a little cheeky run or two, drummer's giving it a bit of this, and thank you, good night, right? No, Gen 2 starts like that.
Oh, really?
Or you hear it, you just hear 4 clicks, and then bang, and that's it, and I tear out a song away. Then we settle into the song.
Nice.
So I got some footage I'm going to send you. I'm going to put it up on my socials later. It was sent to me by a promoter who came to this gig to see us and offer us some shows. So that's always a good thing. And it was this room of people that had been just sitting down, and they'd been listening to this girl do some poetry in front of a jazz band just before us. And she was great, right? But they're all sitting around, there's about 60, 70 people in the room.
Right.
And we came on, and there's some footage that was taken from, near the back of the room, just to the crowd going absolutely bananas. And I'm like, that's good. And these are not, and I'm like, yeah, we didn't know one of them. There's no friends, no relatives, no anyone who knows us. There was a couple of people who'd seen us a week before and came back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you just go, take your music and do it for yourself and do it for others, and just enjoy it, and it'll all just sit nicely in place.
Yeah,
and I had a promoter ring last night for a bunch of a bunch of gigs. Go just off the back of that. But yeah, play anywhere you get a chance, because if you can make someone's day, you're doing your job.
Right.
That's what it's about.
Here in the States, also people prefer to go see cover bands
Cover
also,
band?
or tribute
Yeah.
bands of bands
Yeah.
that they all know. So that's pretty big here as well. And people have a hard time going to original bands like you guys too. So, but I didn't think about going to open nights. So we do have a place down here called the Valley in Tacoma that does do open nights all the time.
Yeah, we have.
I haven't got a chance to go. Yeah, I haven't got a chance to go
there's the
down there and
Valley.
check it out yet, but
Yeah, there's the Valley. There's Rock the Dock on the water.
Yeah.
There's Dawson's. A couple of others. We played at Dawson's our first show to kind of like
Yeah.
introduce ourselves once we moved out here. 'Cause, right,
Yeah,
we
as an open mic.
as an open
Yeah.
mic, for sure, and it's super fun. It's really
But
cool.
you get a room full of people who actually want to see music.
yeah, you
You're
do.
not like trying to jam yourself into into an eatery or anywhere else, or so you're not like a
lot of people-
bypass situation.
There's a lot of people who want some free music and see local music instead of being like, okay, I'm gonna go pay a $15 cover for a show.
Yeah.
Or-
A band I've never heard of.
Right. Which
Right.
there's
Yeah.
people that do that, but I feel like Grace and I have been talking about doing maybe some more of that, going back to the open.
Do it. Do
You know,
it.
we did open
Seriously.
mic.
Well, I'm
Nothing-
glad you brought it up,
nothing.
Tony, because I've been trying to convince him for a while now. So now he has someone else trying to convince him.
Well, I'm sorry, man. Now I'm going to pull ranking. Dude, if it's good enough for me, you got no excuse.
I hear you. Much for that.
And, because it's all about, like, if you want to share your music with an audience, you want to share your music with an audience that wants to see
Right.
you. Now, when you're playing in your military positions, those people may not always want to see you, but if you're playing in an event or something like that, they will see you and then they'll enjoy you. But then I keep going back to this cafeteria thing because this should be the benchmark for you guys going, dude, that's the best show ever because we're playing in these situations and, you know, we're brightening people's days. Like if you're in active service and you're, you know, in Iraq or Afghanistan or God knows
Right.
where,
The
and
Middle
it's
East.
Thanksgiving or it's Christmas or it's New Year, and I don't care who you are or, you know, where you think you are in your life, that point of separation on key dates like that always is much more extreme than it would be. Like, you know, if our son's away and, you know, he can be away for, you know, 3 or 4 months and I might talk to him for a month and my wife would say, oh, we haven't spoken to him for a month. I'm like, oh, yeah, but, you know, he's right because of my previous life. I know he's fine. You know, and I might message him, go, hey, how you doing? And then he sends me a picture of him and his boys jumping out the back of a helicopter or something like that, going, yeah, we're having fun. You know, that's the way we go. But those key dates are the dates that everybody thinks about. And it doesn't matter, even if you don't like your family, you're going to have friends. There's going to be someone. I don't know, the quote, no man / all woman, but no man is an island.
Right.
So those key dates, and this is where music is at its absolute most crucial. And, you know, even if it makes you melancholy and makes you miss home and makes you think about home, it's reached into your soul if you want. And just giving you a little warm hug, you know, that's
Exactly.
it.
Live music is so amazing because
Yeah.
anytime that someone is in a place and really connects with the music, that just touches you, whether it's in a sad way, melancholy, you know, sad way, or you're, you know, elated and just having a good time moshing around or whatever you're doing. It's connecting you with the people you're listening with and the band and just bringing yourself a little bit into your thoughts. And it's something that, you know, we have the whole AI thing of writing music, and there's a lot of musicians freaking out about that, but we're never going to lose live music because that is such a visceral thing that people feel at live music, you know, whether it's or it's a big show, your favorite band type thing.
I was invited to a lecture and to participate in a lecture about AI in the music industry. And I declined, and I went, is there a reason? Well, so I have a very strong tech background. Right? I'm like, yeah, it doesn't worry me. Oh, aren't you worried about it? No, not at all. And they're like, dude, it's taking people's jobs. I go, nah, not people who know how to do what I do. I mean, like if you're a musician, now, okay, I'm going to go with this. Okay, so Austin, you play trombone, you play guitar. right? Always the next note is your choice. Grace, you play bass. So you've got the structure of the music there, but you know the way that you play the bass or make a run or take a transition can literally take that piece of music and change it from one thing to a complete another thing. This is the writing and pre-production process. You have something that AI, no matter how advanced, can never, ever replicate. You have your own personal experience, emotions, and free will to go. You know, sometimes you might even think about it. How many things have you had done in songs or pieces that you've written or runs that you've done or whatever that are just a happy accident?
So many.
Oh, man, I meant to go to G and I ended up going to F, and it sounds a whole lot better. And if I do F and if I bang that little fifth on there and then slide that back up into the G position, damn, tasty, right? So this is the whole thing. It's like people who worry about AI, dare I say, are people like Kanye West.
Right.
Because he puts AI and it just goes, do this, and it snaps it all together and goes, there's a new album. And go, yep, and we'll be playing that in 50 years' time and remembering it.
Nah.
Right.
Well, and having the vibratos too, or like little embellishments and little human parts, or if your AI is probably going to want to be on the beat, but if you have something where you're like, you know, an eighth note off, hit something, or you know, those weird parts of music that are purely human, AI is going to have a hard time to replicate those feelings and emotions that you're trying to portray through your music.
If you take people marching, I keep going back to the military thing for obvious reasons, right? So you take people marching and you take a group of really elite, say the really elite Marines, the guys that go and do the military tattoos and they go all around the world and they do the gun swirling and they do everything that just horrifies you and you go, man, that with a weapon, please don't. Yeah, right.
A bayonet with a knife on the end of it too.
Yeah, you look at it and you go, man, that's amazing, and it's so tight and it's so completely in time and wow, isn't that amazing? And you film that at 50,000 frames a second and you slow it right down. And then you map that and you see that every single one of these people is either slightly behind or slightly in front, and one or two might be right on it for that bit, but the 12 goes slightly faster. If you start to pull it down to the way a computer inspects things and AI inspects things, you'll find that the beauty of human imperfection is exactly that. It's human imperfection.
So true.
Yeah.
If you're writing with a sequence, you guys, I don't know how much recording you've done, or if you ever write with a sequencer or whatever. So, like, if you write with a sequencer and you write a piece and you go, "This is tasty," all right, really tasty. And then even if you use a bass, like a drum machine to start with, and you put the bass line with it, put some guitar line with it, and you put some other instruments with it, and you go, tasty as, all right. Then in digital form, if you hit quantize and you quantize that stuff, you will find that the vibe is completely gone.
It gets so
if you put everything exactly on the beat, and like if you break it, even if you break it down like to 1/128th of a bar, which is the most minute time scale possible, like, yeah, I can play that for about 3 seconds if I'm doing some stupid like hammer-on thing. You take it down to that thing and quantize it to that, people go, they'll just tidy it up, and you listen and all of a sudden the soul's gone. Right? Well, and you unquantize it and you put it back and you've got, hey, check this piece here. Grace is just pushing the beat along lovely. She's got this little run going on, so it's going along, and you're like dragging it back because you're just playing like a intentionally sloppy-handed sort of Eric Clapton thing. And the mix of that and the way the harmonics blend and the way the beat just sits back and the backbeat's just humping along, and you just go, human music. Can't beat it, can't replicate it.
Right, you can't.
Yeah, never will.
100%, Tony. When I first started messing around with recording software, I'd be like, okay, I hadn't played music in, probably 3 years, since 3 years removed from the last band and playing with any other people. I've been like playing to backing tracks, just getting my chops up. But I started recording and I'd be like, okay, I was a little off on that one, quantize, and it just turns to garbage. I'm like,
You just go, "Ooh, I'm not really that bad."
oh no, okay, so no quantize. I just have to actually
Yeah.
get a feel for it. Get that feel going,
Yeah.
get that groove,
You couldn't march to quantized music.
Never. The
You couldn't
quantize
do it.
doesn't work. It doesn't.
It's got no feel. It has no feel at all.
If you want to quantize, just throw on a metronome and let the band do their thing, right? That's the closest that you can get is a metronome.
Yeah.
Everyone's kind of knows their home bass slot and then go from there.
We got a reputation as the tightest live band getting around. Again, I'm going to say, go and listen to a new album. Go straight to the live track first. You'll see why. That is 100. It's 100% live, and then you'll see why we have a good reputation. I want you to keep in mind, I'm doing that while jumping around on the stage, and I just play guitar up here or down here or everywhere. It's like
that's what I want to work on, because I feel like my live presence. I look at the crowd and I'll jump around and I'll like go over and like heavier songs like Push Into Grace or like Jump Around.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the song I'm like looking at the fretboard, and that's a thing that I'm really trying to get over, is just
all you need to do is just years of practice.
Years of practice.
I'm older than you two added up together and some.
Years of practice.
So I don't mean to steal the thunder on the interviews, but I'm really curious as a musician from Melbourne. I really like Australian punk music and some of the newer bands specifically. Have you heard of a band called DZ Death Rays?
No.
They're from Australia. They are so good. Really
good. I'm gonna write them down.
A couple for you. I have two more. I love Australian rock music. You guys really get it. It's super fun. So DZ Death Rays. Listen to Like People. That's a great song. And then Wax. It's WAXX. It's a female singer on the band.
Yeah, them I have heard of.
Yeah, Wax is awesome. And then Dear Seattle, which is weird because they're from Australia, but they're singing about where I live.
I know. Well, I mean, we're pretty knowledgeable in Australia about the world. In fact, Australians, on our general knowledge on the whole planet's pretty good because we grew up with American TV and English TV and Australian TV and then European stuff. So we're pretty good, and we're very multicultural. So most people don't have any challenge at all with people's accents. I mean, I used to spend a lot of time in LA and Houston. I had a base in Houston, and it's like I'd go from Houston. Of course, I can't help it. So it's the show me thing. You get a little bit of a twang going on or whatever. I had a mismatch accent. I'd be going between LA, Houston, London, Australia, and back, and people are like, where the hell are you from? And I would go to LA and I'd order something and I'm like, excuse me? I'm like, what? I'm speaking English, really? But in Australia, like every musician, there wouldn't be a musician in Australia who doesn't understand the progression of music through both America and England. We could tell you about the Liverpool and Mersey sound with the Beatles and everything that followed up through there, and London sound, London punk scene there. But then as well, at the same time, they'll sit there and go, I'll talk about the blues influence on Elvis Presley, early rock and roll, the white side, the black side, and then they'll go, right, okay, Seattle, yeah, man, that's where grunge started. And they'll be like, and they will rattle off Nirvana, and they'll rattle off, Stone Temple Pilots, and they'll be going to, Audio Slave were pretty big here too. So that was the kind of next level down, and that was on Seattle into LA, and away you go. So it's like, I'm not surprised there's a band called Dear Seattle. It's just like,
right. Well, it's so amazing to play here in Seattle. Growing up in Montana, it's a lot of, it's a dream come true to at least play in a band that's doing local shows, because in Montana, it's really hard to find musicians who we could do some, more traditional
country.
stuff. Yep. Yeah, you know what? It's all Australian.
See, I mean, we know where Montana is. So,
You guys know, yeah. So it's country, but coming out here, I'm growing up,
Yeah.
you know, listening. My favorite band growing up was like Iron Maiden and a lot of bands from the '80s. And I played a little bit of my chops from trying to play like Megadeth or Iron Maiden, but
yeah,
back a little bit. I don't play metal anymore. I listen to it a bunch, but it's crazy to go from Montana to Seattle, Tacoma, you know, where I'm playing at venues that Nirvana, you know, Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains, all these bands played at when they were getting their footing. It's cool to be at ground zero for these bands and play at the same time.
It is. It's very, very cool. It's very cool. Oh, man. Hey, listen, now I hate to cut this short, but we have to wind up in about 5 minutes because I've got another interview at 2:15 our time in the afternoon. So
no worries. We're going to wrap this up really quickly. So we're almost done anyway. So real quick on the musicians that I researched who's been in the bands. MC Hammer, he was in the military. He was a petty officer, third class aviation storekeeper in the Navy. James Otto, his family was also in the military. Army drill sergeant. Johnny Cash was in the military. Elvis Presley, we all know he was in the military. And also Jim Hendrix. Yeah.
No, I mean, but was he really, or was he?
I know, right? Also, Jimi Hendrix was in the military. So
yep. And I don't know whether you know this, Stuart Copeland, the drummer from the Police.
No way.
His father was in the CIA.
No way.
And Stuart Copeland spent a lot of time getting around the Middle East and stuff like that, and East Africa. And that's why his drumming chops are so incredibly good, because he had not only Western influence, but Middle Eastern and African influence as well. And I still rate him as one of the best drummers ever.
The whole band is so talented. That whole band.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just very good. So there you go. There's my little surprise one for you. Stuart Copeland, CIA connection. Bang.
Thank you so much, man. I really learned a lot from you. And just
Me too. I had
to connect with the musicians from other countries and get different perspectives.
When we're off,
let's talk about the music.
This is a great show. Really, actually.
When we're off record, I'll give you my my Facebook and let's hook up. But when we're off record,
so real quickly, plug yourself. Where can we find each of one of yours in social media, and how can we find each other? Tony, you first, since you got to go.
Okay, Gen 2 Music, GEN and the number 2, like it is on the screen, and the word music straight afterwards. You will find us on Facebook, you'll find us on Insta, you'll find us on TikTok. If you go to any of our socials, you'll also find our link tree. Our link tree will give you access to everything everywhere. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Music, YouTube Music, you name it, we're on it.
Cool. All right. Pricklies?
Yeah, we're Prickly Paranoia. We're on all streaming services, and best place to reach us is Instagram or Facebook. We're just Prickly Paranoia. Our next show is October 24th at Real Art in Tacoma.
I'll do my best to get this out there before October.
Excellent. Right. And we'll hope to get stateside next year at some stage and do some shows. That'll be good.
Right. And you guys listen to the show. More information, please go to letstalkaboutthemusic.com. Well, I will be doing a blog post on all these two guys, and I've dropped the audio and visual of the podcast.
Awesome.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, Charles. Awesome work. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. And when you guys go see a open mic, I'll be there.
We'll let you know.
We'll post it. We'll post it on socials.
All right. Bye, guys.
No worries. See ya.
As we wrap this up on episode 3, I want to take this moment to honor and thanks to all the men and women in the military, especially those who share their talents and music as a musician. Your dedication and service is truly appreciated. Now that you guys know that there are musicians in the military, what are your thoughts on the topic? If you're watching this on YouTube, please go ahead and submit your comments down below. If you are listening, please send me an email at letstalkaboutmusic@gmail.com. Now, if you are a musician in the military or you know someone who is, I invite you and them to come join me on a show discussion on your unique roles and experiences. Again, email me at letstalkaboutmusic@gmail.com. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to this episode of Let's Talk About the Music. If you enjoy the vibe, don't forget to subscribe and make us your #1 podcast. Join our newsletters for the latest updates. A huge shout out to the amazing guest co-host. Without you, the show could not be possible. This includes Ripple for the intro credit and Papa Satch, the fantastic new theme song. And a very special guest goes out to 89.9 The Current at Green River College. Until next time, keep the music alive because music is everywhere.